Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Deception. A great episode. In this episode, it deals with this lady named Anne who ended up stealing it's kind of like a scrambler device that she ended up stealing. It's kind of interesting because it took a lot of painstaking stuff to do what she did, because basically she brought in a makeshift gun piece by piece over the course of a couple months. She was quote unquote dating the guy that was in charge, because they do such a good job, because obviously I'm gonna be skipping around, but the guy like she ended up shooting was behind everything. But it's so interesting because they even set it up for the audience to be like, oh man, obviously he's like, oh, he's a victim, and it's like, oh, he got played, she was just dating you for the sake of it. It's like, man, that was a long con. It makes you wonder on what level was he also like a trained assassin too? Was he just someone that like, oh, they fell in love and so he's willing to help her because of this? Or like what? Like, we never really kind of got too deep into that. I guess it's kind of not as important as the whole Anne situation, but it was just kind of fascinating because it's interesting, because Cameron kind of makes the same comparison, because it's like, oh yeah, you know, magicians kind of usually have some things set up months in advance, like long way in advance, so they can work wait for the perfect moment for something to kind of work to pull off a trick. And then like Kay's like, is that why I keep finding like these random like deck like cards in my pockets and stuff like that? He's like, no, that's for something else. She's like, really? He's like, no, like you got me. It's like, I wonder like what if that wasn't the case, like what would have been the other thing if that wasn't true? Like it, like what is he setting that up for? What was I guess it's just gonna be one of those big surprises. And she's like, wait, what? What's that? Maybe it's I don't know. I don't know what the hell. I mean, with the magician, you never know. I mean, you know, every little thing turns into something, so you don't know what that can mean. Like, is it just something he hadn't planned out completely yet, or was it all leading up to something, or was it just that Kay kept finding them too soon? Was he going to try and press her later on, like, oh yeah, this is for this powerful moment, and it's like, oh look, I pulled this card out of you, and it's like, but she keeps finding them too quickly or something. Like, I don't know. That's where my mind is. But I do love in this episode we get introduced to Kay's ex, and it makes perfect sense, because I forgot we did kind of go to we did meet one of Cameron's exes, and it is kind of interesting how both their worlds kind of collide like that. Like for God, I'm blanking on his ex's name, but that we met in the show. Like, her big thing for him is just because like so much of his life she didn't actually know much about, you know, Cameron, because the whole magician. Turns out Kay's kind of in a similar situation with her ex Isaac, played by Brett Dalton, which is it funny because he recently popped up in an episode of Elementary like a week or two ago. And then on top of that, obviously like he's, you know, best known for being well, there's also Until Dawn, where he played Mike, but also like, you know, ABC related Ward on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I was like, just full circle on some. You get what I'm trying to say. So that was kind of interesting. And I love that Kay was kind of still like startled by the whole situation. And because like you had Cameron being like, he's walking this way. She's like, what? He is? And it's just, and Cameron's like, oh, come on, play it cool. So, but it turns out Anne wanted to be captured so that she can activate the scrambling device in the FBI building, because on the 23rd floor, apparently there's a CIA like black site with files and stuff like that, which is so interesting, because even Kate's like, I literally have been working in this building, had no idea. It's like, man, the CIA keeps secrets up and down. Makes you wonder, did Deacons know? I mean, even if Deacons did know, it's one of those things like, you don't need to know, Kay, so you didn't know. So it's probably just one of those situations. But this very situation is kind of why Kay and Isaac had issues, because it's like there was so much kept secret. It's kind of funny because she was kind of kicked out a little bit off the case when I was like, oh yeah, this is about something called Firebird. It's like Cameron's also being kicked off the case, which even he was like, I kind of take this a little personal, because every time he turns around in the case, it's like, oh, you're not acknowledged to know that. It's like, I'm working with you guys, but just because I'm a consultant, that means I don't get access to a lot of information. It's like, okay, first on there's the FBI level, and now it's like the CIA. It's like, yeah, you're not privy to this information. It's like, come on, guys, I've helped you with so many cases. Let me help out on this, you know? So it kind of sucks in that situation. But I did like that whole situation where like Cameron's pretending to be the dude. And I was like, okay, so how did he fake this? Was he wearing something or what? It's like, no, some invisible glass that they had set up, like, stopped the bullet. And I love Gunter being like, oh my God, like if this had not, man, your brains would have went splat. It's like, that's very tactful and beautiful of you to say it like that, Gunter. Because even he was kind of like, oh, he was hoping that this whole case dealt with like nuclear weapons or something like that, so he can get under a hood. It's like, really, Gunter? That's your biggest concern about this whole situation? But nevertheless, It turns out that, and like the file she stole about this operation, basically she was a part of some operation, like she's a Venezuelan assassin, and basically she was tasked with doing something, and her team ended up getting wiped out by the CIA team, and now she's getting revenge against each member. And as I said earlier, her boss, she's actually working with him. Turns out that Isaac's actually a part of that same team. The team was actually named after his code name, which is Firebird. And it put Kay in the line of fire because apparently they were engaged, which is interesting. It's kind of interesting too because like you had the whole situation of like, you can like Cam being like, oh yeah, you should go out and talk to Isaac. Obviously he's got some stuff to say. You got some stuff to say. But you know, it's because it took John to make Cam realize like he has feelings for Kay. It's like, it's super obvious you two are kind of into each other. I don't know if Kay's really kind of in that direction. I mean, and she ends up bringing it up this episode. She's like, yeah, I mean, I know what you said wasn't real because John already told me I'm not your type. And he was like, really? And he's like, oh, right. Which is like, even at that point, you could tell it kind of caught Kay off guard because when he said that, she was like, wait, almost like, wait, what? Because even in this episode, she kind of had to explain it. It's like, no, we work together. We're together. No, not in that way. We work together. And Cameron's like, glad you clarified that for him. So it is kind of interesting. I mean, for one, it's because she's talking to her ex too, so it just kind of wants to set the ground rules, you know. So it's interesting because it's one of those things when you like someone and you want to be supportive of them. So it's kind of like, you're like, oh, no, you should totally, yeah, obviously, oh, she's single. Are you single? Oh, wow, you're single. Let me stay back. But you can tell it bothered him. And I just love the whole situation of him being like, yeah, I know you're jealous. He's like, Cam's like, no, I'm not. And John's like, okay, I got one thing to say to you. David Blaine, he's like, oh my God, you're right. I'm jealous. It's like, what the hell does that mean? I know Isaac had that line of like, oh yeah, like if I went on a deception team of my own, he's like, yeah, you should get on that. Yeah, except don't, you know, anybody but David Blaine. I really hate that guy. So I was wondering, is it just because he doesn't like David Blaine in general? So it's kind of like, it's because he's jealous of David Blaine kind of blowing up, kind of being like who he is, kind of like a well-known magician, whereas like Cameron's well-known, but probably not well enough known that he'd probably appreciate it. Because like not everyone recognizes Cameron, so I guess that kind of is like, you know, it's just kind of one of those pride situations of just the different level of like celebrity that they are. Maybe that's what kind of bothers Cameron in the whole situation. So maybe he was kind of referencing that. Maybe stuff has come up in the past where it's like, ooh, David Blaine and Cameron type of situation where it's just kind of like Cameron's just like, ooh, David Blaine. Maybe. I don't know. That'd be kind of, I don't know. There might be a story to that. Maybe not. I don't know. But it is interesting to know that he has kind of confronted that, which is interesting because you have the whole like Mike, Dina, and John situation. So it's just kind of interesting that that same thing kind of a little bit applies in this situation for Cameron. So luckily Cam showed up in time. I mean, it probably won't come up, but it's like, yo, to get to Kay and Isaac, he like ran on foot to chase after him, got out the car, ran on foot and said what he needed to say just to kind of distract the dude because the guy didn't know what the actual Firebird dude looked like. He only knew about is, oh, Kay is his fiance, and it's like, oh, this guy that's with her, Isaac must be. And it's like, oh, but the moment Cameron started talking, like, oh yeah, we were together and everything, said what he needed to say to make the dude target him instead. So, I mean, it's kind of sad about the whole Isaac and Kay situation because it's just kind of like there are so many secrets kept between them. I mean, more so his situation because it's like she thought she knew him. It was like, oh yeah, you're a field agent. It's like, actually, nope, I'm actually an assassin for the CIA. And it's like he said he did that just to protect her, but it's like he got so like, yeah, you're right, my life was full of so many secrets and lies. That's kind of what destroyed the relationship. But you know, that makes you even question like, did I ever really know you? Because like you kept so much big parts of your life secret. Who's to say like I knew anything about you? Which is kind of the opposite for Kay and Cam. I'm sure, I mean, it's even something Kay even talked about because Cam was like, is there stuff you're not telling me? She's like, oh yeah, there's a lot. He's like, fair enough. So it's like they still have secrets, but it's kind of like a little probably like back and forth type of thing of like, oh yeah, we know you have secrets, but it's like, I'm sure, but I mean, you could tell they are close because I probably doubt that whole like her sister situation. I doubt that's something a lot of people know. That's probably only like a select few people know about that, you know? So I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see how Cameron handles this going forward. I always like situations like this when it comes to storytelling where it's like, oh, these two people who work together so closely. It's like, obviously they develop feelings for each other, but they're just not, one person might be more obvious about it, or at the very least is more aware of it and is I'm curious to see how he reacts to this whole situation. Will he go for it? Will he kind of keep his, I mean, because obviously it's like, well, we have our working relationship and he wouldn't want to jeopardize that with, and their friendship by potentially, trying to take things further. Like, would Kay be down for it? Maybe not. I mean, she just ran into her ex recently. So that, I mean, might not be the best time to kind of jump forward with that. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to think about. Because I was thinking the entire time, like, the whole Firebird thing, I wasn't even thinking that it was potentially, I was thinking, like, oh yeah, Firebird was the target she was protecting. I was like, oh my god, the dude that she's with, it's totally got it, like, oh yeah, he's got to be Firebird. He must have been, because I was thinking to myself, it's like, well, to be fair, I guess he would have known at some point in time, but because at first I was like, oh yeah, Isaac never met him, so he might not know that that's Firebird, but it's like, no, it turns out that was completely wrong about it, but nevertheless, kind of tying this all together with the other part of this story is the whole situation where John is like, oh yeah, there's some stuff on the mystery woman, some files that were redacted, and he's like, oh, so I need you to go take, Mike's badge and use that to get me the unredacted file. Dina talks to him about it first, but he is like, oh yeah, there's so many reasons why stuff gets redacted, because it's either because it's to protect somebody or it's part of some bigger operation, which begs the question, like the way John talks about it later on, it's like, oh, some phone numbers and stuff like that. It seems insignificant, but it must be part of something, like for it to be redacted. Not unless that was kind of part of some like long play, because what we end up finding out later on is that Mike's card was stolen to the point he actually gets suspended for it, which you can tell Dina feels so bad about, because she's like, oh my, even I was like, oh man, this sucks. Dina, like, because for her, it's almost like I literally jeopardized my relationship for nothing, because it turned out to not be anything that the FBI was keeping from us. And then it turns out like, it's like, oh man, now Mike got fired. It's like, oh, they found out he did that. He went into an unredacted file or something. I was like, man, but is that really worth getting, well, not fired, but suspended over? And it turns out the diamond that was in evidence was stolen. And it's like, oh my God. Like, it got taken from, which is so interesting because it was taken from Dina and used again like that. And it's like, oh my God. That, because, you're part of the deception team, and I guess even the deception team can get fooled sometimes, but it's like, that's crazy. Like, you pickpocketed off of Mike and you got pickpocketed. It's like, you would think that you above anyone else, but I guess you weren't suspecting it, I guess that just shows you how good that dude is to make that happen, but still. And Dina feels responsible because not only did the mystery woman get what she wanted, because that's kind of on Dina, but also Mike suffered the consequences because she was the one who stole it in the first place. Yes, she wasn't the one that stole the diamond, but she allowed the mystery woman to be in a position to get the diamond in the long run. So it's kind of like, man, that's harsh. Because also, if this truth comes out, especially because it's like she's jeopardizing her relationship, and John should have thought about that before he even said anything, because it's like, you were asking her to jeopardize something, because the argument could be made, it's like, you're doing that on purpose because you want things that are going to fall apart. Yes, that might not have been his initial reaction, and his reasoning for it, but you could make that argument could still be made if you think about it too much. But it's obviously he just wanted more information, but still, even trying to spin it to make it seem like the FBI is hiding stuff from them, not giving them everything. So, like I said, I still feel like there's got to be a lot more to it. The thing I was thinking about was maybe the mystery woman having the connections that she did, had those files redacted just so she could pull the pieces in just the right way to get John to do something like that, make it like maybe the mystery woman knew exactly. I mean, for you to go after Dina like that, I mean, to be fair, he knew about it because he was overhearing, because he's a security guard at the prison John works. But still, like, maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe it's just kind of like, oh, I'm working with her anyway, so I knew this was a great opportunity. I kind of explained it to myself now, so never mind. It wasn't something like that. It just happened to be like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to take it, because they were already planning on taking Mike's card anyway, so this gives us easy access. Which is interesting to think about, the fact is that the mystery woman does have eyes on John even in prison, which I'm not too surprised about, because that was why I was thinking, like, oh yeah, like, she obviously had to been by that murder. Like, I mean, what would be the point of, like, obviously she didn't frame John for it, which I thought was kind of the thing. I thought, like, oh yeah, she easily framed John just to see how he handled the situation, I thought, potentially, but turns out not to be the case. So that also makes me wonder, does Winslow have any connection to it? Like, him going after John like that, could that have been some, like, mystery woman connection? I mean, who's to say that security guard's the only person in the prison? I mean, because obviously there's more, because there was that episode, what was the other episode when John handled that situation? We saw one prison guard kind of look look at him during that whole situation. So that's why I was kind of like, oh man, that's got to be someone that dude Andy was working with. And it's like, oh, they're going to target Winslow. It's like, no, that was most likely the same dude that works with the mystery woman that was looking at that. So maybe he works with the mystery woman, but inadvertently John ended up helping him. So he was kind of feeling like, I don't know. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. Maybe Winslow is just kind of his own thing. So we haven't cut back to it. So he hasn't died or anything. Not unless someone is waiting. Because I thought it was someone that was working with him. The Andy dude that was framing John and Winslow and many other prisoners. I thought that was the case, and that he's going to go after Winslow in the moment, because that is still up, because that whole thing is still up in the air about like that guy getting murdered. So I mean, in retrospect, like it's still a possibility. I still think the mystery woman is probably connected to that. So it probably was a situation of like, because she put Cameron through a lot of tests. So who's to say this isn't another test by her, just to test John, because she now knows that the person she met all those years ago was John, that she has this, I guess she felt like they had a connection then, and maybe she thought her entire life it was Cameron that she had this connection to, so she grew this almost borderline obsession about. Maybe that's kind of borderlining into it. I don't know. So she could still be behind this, and it still could get Winslow killed potentially. So I don't know. All that's still kind of out there, but it's definitely going to be interesting going forward. Does Dina say anything? Does she keep it? I mean, there's a whole situation of they literally, because it's so interesting, because Dina was like, okay, me and you, we have to keep things secret. I'm like, why? Everyone knows you're dating, because during that whole episode where you're like, yeah, no more secrets. But it's like, almost like, don't want everyone to know that you're actually like sleeping together, except for John. Like, let him know first, and then you can tell everybody else. But that's just, like I said, it's just your relationship is something fresh and new, and you just jeopardize all of it. And the question is, because it's like, it's because it's like, yeah, you have the best intentions, because you're like, oh, we need to get John out, but it's also, it's a complicated situation in itself, because there's layers to it, because it's like, well, he's also your ex too, and stuff like that. I mean, as she said, she's got her baggage, because it's like, oh, you still went to your ex to have to tell him about the fact that you're in this new relationship. It's a whole thing. So the way Cameron puts it, though, I mean, kind of an aside from that, is the whole fact is that now the mystery woman has all the pieces she needs potentially for that photo, for whatever she is up to, Because I'm surprised we didn't dive into it this episode, but maybe next episode is the whole Raven group. God, I'm blanking on her name from last week's episode that has a connection to Aleister Black, who was a member of it. We didn't really see or hear like John talking about it either, so maybe that's something we can still dive into in the future too, because I'm sure that's going to be a big help in figuring out this whole mystery woman connection, like what she wants with, well, what she originally wanted with Cam, now wants with John, like what this has to do with Cam and John's family, as well as all those other big time people that their great grandfather Aleister was connected to. So I'm very interested to see where this all takes us into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good